Hi, I'm Scott, and the purpose of this channel is to discuss how to become a Renaissance person. And I thought one of the things that we should discuss on this is the ubiquity of fake news. Now, I think we all understand what fake news is and could define it, but I thought it would be interesting to go and do a thought experiment. Join me. So, you know this guy named Bob. He lives in your neighborhood. You see him occasionally walking down the street. You might say hi to him or something like that. You met him through a friend of a friend, but honestly, you don't even remember how you met this guy. And you don't really have anything more than a quick little acquaintance rapport with him when you see him. You don't really hang out or anything. You might know somebody who knows Bob, but that's as far as it goes. Well, you walk down the street, you see him for years, and then all of a sudden he comes up to you and says, "There was a fire down the block." Okay, so you have a little bit of history with Bob, and he's never said anything that you thought was a lie, so you're probably prone to believe him. In addition to that, you know that he probably lives in your neighborhood. You have some established relationship with him, even if that's just seeing him, walk down the street and talking to him every once in a while. And you figure he probably knows what's going on in the neighborhood, so it's probably fair to say that you can probably believe him that there was a fire down the street. He doesn't have any specific agenda for telling you otherwise, so you can probably take him at his word. Not to mention the fact that it's something easy enough for you to go and fact check if you want to. You can go online or watch the news that night and see if there's anything that talks about this fire. Well, let's say that Bob comes to you one day and says, "Joe Biden is an alien from outer space." You have to ask yourself at that point, okay, well, how would he know if Joe Biden was actually an alien? Does Bob actually give you any facts or anything for reference that you could go and check? Is this something that you can quantify and check yourself online? Probably not, because Joe Biden is not an alien. And how did he come up with this information in the first place? Unless he was captured by aliens, he probably doesn't really have any ground to speak of on this particular subject. And is Bob introducing this storyline to you with any inflammatory rhetoric? Is he saying something against Joe Biden or something that Joe stands for? Does he have an agenda for telling this story? And why would he believe this if it's not true? And that gets to the crux of the matter. We end up believing things sometimes for reasons that we can't really understand. Could be emotional, could be passion, could be because it fits into our own narrative or how we see the world. Well, would you give Bob more credence if he had a website and said the same thing? Or if he had his own news channel? Would you give him more credence if his friends were saying the same thing? But they don't really know anything more than you do because they heard it the same way you did, via Bob espousing this strange belief, None of this is verifiable. You can't get it from any other news source. You tell your friend Ted what Bob said, and Ted thinks Bob is crazy. I mean, a lot of what we get in fake news comes from these unreliable sources that can't be proven, have no discernible description, might have some hidden agenda or some rhetoric or speech that would be inflammatory, causing you to believe one thing over another. And if you can't guarantee the source, then how can you ever expect the news itself to be accurate? Just a thought. something to put out there, because so many of us are getting news from disparate sources and often not from the mainstream media, or as some people would call the lamestream media. But again, where would they even get that from other than from a particular source or few sources that end up espousing the same thing over and over again? If someone says something enough, even if it's untrue, some people are going to believe it. And if you end up saying something like telling Ted what Bob said, even though you don't necessarily believe it, it gets out there. You're giving life to an untruth, to a lie, basically, in essence. It's a combination of misinformation and disinformation. And I hope you, my dear viewer, are smart enough and cognizant enough, skeptical enough, not to believe everything you hear. Thank you for watching, and if you found this instructive or entertaining, please subscribe. Take care.